Today, we're going to tackle a really complex topic, the invisible but incredibly profound impact of growing up with a narcissistic parent. In this explainer, we're going to break down what that home environment is really like, the roles a child is often forced to play, and, most importantly, the path toward healing. So here's our roadmap. We'll start by exploring just how unpredictable and chaotic that home environment can be. Then we'll look at the specific roles these kids are forced to adopt. From there, we'll dive into the tools of manipulation used, the scars they leave in adulthood, and finally, we'll talk about the crucial steps to breaking the cycle for good. This idea really gets to the heart of it. The home, which should be this place of safety and refuge, instead becomes an emotional minefield. The one thing a child needs to feel secure, predictability, is just gone. So let's really define this environment. Imagine a place run by a cruel set of invisible rules. Every single step a child takes could lead to either over-the-top praise or just silent, crushing humiliation. There is absolutely no stable ground to stand on, only the parents' constantly shifting moods. The number one rule in this household is that love isn't a gift, it's a transaction. Affection, validation, any kind of warmth, it's all conditional. It's something you have to earn, and you earn it only by perfectly matching whatever the parent needs or feels in that exact moment. Okay, so this conditional environment, it has a direct and powerful effect on the child's identity. They're not seen as their own person with their own thoughts and feelings. No, they're treated more like a functional object, basically an extension of the parent's own ego. And this dynamic often reduces the child to what you could call a living trophy. Their main job is to reflect a perfect, idealized image back to the parent. But you can imagine how fragile that is, right? Just one mistake, one disagreement, and that parental pride can flip to instant contempt. So if a child isn't allowed to just be an individual, what role do they end up playing? Well, the source material points to three very distinct functions they are assigned to serve the parent's emotional needs. Kids in these families often get locked into these really rigid roles. There's the idealized golden child, the blamed scapegoat, or the neglected invisible child. But here's what's truly destabilizing. These roles aren't permanent. A child can be demoted from golden child to scapegoat overnight for no clear reason, which creates this constant state of confusion and anxiety. Now, in homes where there isn't another healthy adult to act as a buffer, this dynamic can get even more intense, leading to something psychologists call parentification. The child learns that their own emotional survival depends on being able to anticipate and manage the parent's needs. And over time, they slowly lose the ability to even recognize what their own needs are. So, how is a system this unstable even maintained? Let's pull back the curtain and look at the key psychological tools of manipulation that actually keep this whole dynamic locked in place. A really key tactic here is projection. This is a psychological defense mechanism where the parent, who just can't face their own flaws, literally transfers them onto the child. The child effectively becomes a dumping ground for all the parent's unacknowledged insecurities and failures. Let's look at how this plays out. Say a parent is deeply insecure about their own competence. They might constantly call their child weak or incapable. Now, this criticism has absolutely nothing to do with the child's actual abilities. It's a direct reflection of what's going on inside the parent. Another incredibly powerful tool is the constant distortion of reality. You might know it as gaslighting. The parent will literally rewrite history. They'll recast themselves as the victim and blame the child for their own bad behavior or their own emotional outbursts. And this leaves the child constantly questioning their own memory, their own perception of reality. This wild, unpredictable cycle of warmth one minute and cruelty the next creates an incredibly strong and confusing attachment known as a trauma bond. The intense highs and lows basically create a chemical and emotional dependency that is just so difficult to break. And this is one of the most tragic outcomes. The brain literally gets wired to believe that cruelty is the price you have to pay for affection. As an adult, this can lead to unconsciously seeking out partners, friends, or even bosses who replicate that exact same damaging pattern of charm and abuse. These childhood experiences, as you can imagine, don't just disappear. They cast really long shadows, and they translate into lasting challenges that can persist for decades, well into adulthood. For many adults who grew up in these homes, this list might look painfully familiar. We're talking about everything from a deep-seated feeling of guilt over things that are not your fault to an intense fear of rejection that leads you to completely erase your own needs in a relationship. This phrase. This and others like it are classic tools of emotional blackmail. It's used to keep that dependency going, to maintain control over the adult child by making them feel guilty for wanting their own life, their own career, or their own relationships. Now, despite the depth of all this damage, and this is the most important part, recovery is absolutely possible. So let's turn to the path forward and explore what healing actually looks like. The single biggest turning point on the road to recovery is recognition. It's that moment you finally understand that the dynamic you grew up in was not normal, it was not your fault, and it was, in fact, a pattern of abuse. That clarity is the first and, honestly, the most powerful step toward healing. So the path forward really involves these concrete, empowering steps. It's a process of rebuilding your sense of self. It's about learning to trust your own feelings again, setting firm boundaries to protect yourself, and finding people who offer genuine, healthy support. Ultimately, what healing is really about is internalizing a completely new definition of love. It's about understanding and truly believing that real, healthy love is not a transaction. It doesn't involve humiliation, and it certainly never asks you to erase yourself just to earn it. And that leaves us with this final, really essential question to reflect on. This question captures the entire journey we've just talked about, from surviving a painful past to discovering what it truly means to experience real emotional freedom and healthy, genuine connection.